A strategy called TOTE, T-O-T-E, enriched by adding modalities, will give you the NLP strategy model, which can be used to understand how someone operates a particular pattern of behavior. The TOTE strategy is made up of test trigger, operate, test compare, and exit. Consider this simple example. Ben has just started university and may well use the following strategy for phoning home. Feelings indicate that he is missing home. Stage, test trigger, kinesthetic. He makes a mental picture of his family. Stage, operate, visual. He says the phone number to himself. Stage, operate, auditory digital. He dials home. Stage, operate, kinesthetic. For the purpose of this exercise, we will assume Ben got through, so satisfied his test compare, and thus exited the dial home strategy. Once a strategy is embedded in your neurology, you have little or no conscious awareness of its steps. Yet if you know what to look for, you can work out the other person's strategy. You can get a pretty good idea what someone is thinking about, images, emotions, and so on, by watching their eyes. Generally, a person's eyes move in the following ways. When remembering a picture, they move to the top left. When creating a picture, they move to the top right. When remembering a sound or conversation, they move horizontally to their left. When imagining what a sound will sound like, they move horizontally to their right. When accessing emotions, they drop down and to their right. When having a conversation with themselves, they drop down and to their left. How a person's eyes move can depend on whether that person is right or left-handed. A left-handed person may look to the top and their right when they make a visual memory. So, when you're trying to work out someone else's strategy, it's always best to calibrate another person's responses by asking a few innocuous questions, such as, "Which route did you take to get here?" This will force them into visual recall and give you a clue as to which eye strategy they use. NLP is interested more in process, how you do something, than in the content of your experience. So the issue isn't that you get angry when you lose at badminton, which is content, rather how do you go about getting angry when you lose at badminton, which is process. Because NLP is concerned with the how, it's possible to change a strategy that is not giving you the results you want. So, instead of smashing your racket, you could see yourself writing a hefty check for another expensive racket, constructing a visual image. Whatever you do because you have either learned a strategy, usually unconsciously, or developed a strategy to carry out a particular function. For instance, if one eye is weaker than the other, you may have learnt, also unconsciously, to hold reading material directly in front of the stronger eye by moving your head. It's very useful to learn to ask questions that will elicit a strategy. How do you know when to go to the gym? And then watch the other person's eyes as they give their response. This will give you fairly obvious clues as to their strategies. If there's a doubt in your mind, fine-tune the question. Everyone has a particular strategy in order for them to feel truly loved. We call this the deep love strategy. When someone comes along who satisfies that deep love strategy, bingo, on go the rose-tinted glasses for Mr. or Mrs. Right. When you meet someone to whom you're attracted or whom you find interesting, initially you fire all modalities. Visual, you make the effort to look good. Perhaps you wear the colour you've discovered the object of your interest likes. Auditory, you speak in dulcet tones and say the words you think he or she wants to hear. Kinesthetic, you hold hands, you stroke the other person. Olfactory, hope the perfume isn't too overwhelming. Oops, forgot the mouthwash. Gustatory, candlelit dinners with herbs and spices to prove that someone is really special. The person you desire is hooked, and you walk into the sunset hand in hand. But then, after some time, there are rumblings of discontent. What went wrong, you cry? Nothing really. Perhaps you and your partner just reverted to the modality you operate in most naturally. To find a person's strategy for feeling loved, Try saying words to the effect, "You know I love you, don't you?" What would make you feel even more loved? As you do, be sure to pay attention to the eyes and the body language. "I'm not sure," with the eyes going down and to bottom right, could give the clue that more cuddles might be in order. Test your hunch. If the eyes move to the horizontal left, try asking what she might like to hear you say, or what music she might like. Calibrate the response you get when you do something for the other person. Does bringing home a bunch of roses get you that special response? In NLP, calibration is the process by which you read another person's response to your communication. A slap in the face is a pretty overt response, and hopefully you won't repeat the words or behaviour that earned the slap. Most responses are much more subtle. A scowl, a puzzled look, flushed cheeks, a clenched jaw. A master communicator needs to be able to assess these, particularly when the signals are mixed. For example, a smile with a puzzled look may indicate the person doesn't get it, but is too polite to say so. There's nothing like positive feedback to achieve your own strategy, so let him or her know when he or she has hit the mark, especially if you know what your beloved's deep love strategy is. By using your knowledge of strategies, you can make yourself an irresistible communicator. Once you've discovered someone's strategies, you can use them as a framework to feed information back to them. Time has a strange elastic quality. It goes really fast when you're engaged in something interesting, and stretches when you allow yourself to get bored. Are you one of the time-rich people who has all the time in the world, or are you time-poor, always short of time? You can change the meaning a memory has by changing its quality and its relationship to time. This allows you to release yourself from negative emotions and limiting decisions. It gives you the means to create the future you would rather have without the influence of disempowering past memories. There is a structure to your memories. You know whether a memory is in the past or whether you're creating an image in your future by examining what the picture of the memory looks like. A gestalt is a structure or pattern that cannot be derived purely from its constituent parts. Someone thinking about you, for example, will leap from the component parts of which you are made to the whole you. Your memories are arranged in a gestalt which may start to form when you experience an event that first triggers an emotional response. This is termed a significant emotional event, or SEE for short. The significant emotional event is also referred to as the root cause. If you experience a similar event and have a similar emotional response, you link the two events. This continues, and suddenly you have a chain. Memories are arranged in a pattern. If you are asked to point to the direction the past memory came from, where would you point? Some people may identify their past as behind them and their future as in front of them. Some people may have a V-shaped line. Some may have their past to their left and their future to their right. This is interesting because the left is where most people move their eyes to when they want to remember something, and the right is where they move their eyes to when they want to imagine something that isn't real. Yet. You can change the orientation of your timeline so that you can experience a different mindset without changing any of the memories that your timeline is composed of. If you are an in-time person and have to keep to a schedule, you can turn your timeline and become through time with all your timeline in front of you. If you are a through-time person and your timeline is laid out in front of you, you can change it by stepping onto it, so that you have to turn your head or your body to face the past or the future. Another way you might decide to do this is to float above your timeline so it's laid out below you, and as you float back down, it is below your feet or running through your body. Simon said he could never meet his deadlines. When he examined his timeline, he discovered that his future was so far out in front of him that he couldn't generate enough of a sense of urgency about his goals. Simon compressed his timeline and pretended that it was a conveyor belt. He placed goals at specific distances along the belt. When he made his to-do list, he would move the conveyor belt one notch closer. This had a real impact on Simon meeting his commitments. Your timeline is made up of a sequence of memories which have a structure to them. Pictures are in color, Sounds can be loud or soft, and feelings can make you feel light or weigh you down. Examining your memories and understanding the lessons that need to be learned can release the hold the memories have on the present, and you can change their structure, making them smaller, softer, or lighter. So your past need no longer cast a shadow on your present, or, more importantly, on your future. With hindsight and maturity, you can forgive someone in your past. This allows you to release all the energy you had invested in resentment, anger, or other emotions. You can then move on and have all that energy to be more creative or loving, or anything you may want. One useful way to accomplish this is to understand the motives of a person who may have hurt you and realize that, because of their own issues, they were operating from a reality which provided them with a very limited choice. Once you know how to travel your timeline, think how wonderful it would be to take some goals that are so compelling that they are irresistible and put them into your future. Always check your motives in setting and obtaining your goals in order to ensure they fit within all areas of your life. By really examining your reasons, you will ensure there are no hidden negative emotions driving you. So, find yourself somewhere safe and quiet to relax and design your goal. Float way above your timeline so that you can see your past and your future stretching below you. Still above your timeline, float forward along your timeline until you're above the time by which you want to have achieved your goal. Turn and look back to now, and allow all the events along your timeline to align so that they support your goal, noting any actions you may have to take along the way. When you're ready, float back to your present and back down into the room. Can you remember participating in or watching a tug-of-war? Both sides expended an inordinate amount of energy but didn't really manage to move very far. Conflict, whether within yourself or with someone else, is like a big tug-of-war, with two sides pulling in opposite directions and getting nowhere. Conflict within yourself usually occurs between a conscious part of your mind and an unconscious part. I don't know what came over me. I just wasn't myself. Phrases like these give a clue to parts of your unconscious mind which you may be unaware of. The NLP Encyclopedia, which you can access at www.nlpu.com, defines conflict in this way. Psychologically, conflict is a mental struggle, sometimes unconscious, resulting when different representations of the world are held in opposition or exclusivity. In other words, conflict occurs when two maps of the world collide. By reconciling these two different maps, you can eliminate the conflict. Conflict can take place at different levels of a hierarchy made up of identity, values and beliefs, capabilities and skills, behavior, and environment. This hierarchy is also referred to as neurological levels because they connect with your thinking processes and therefore the brain and its interaction with your body. You are in total harmony with yourself when each of your logical levels is aligned with the others. Personal conflict occurs when what you're trying to achieve or what you believe is out of kilter with other levels in the hierarchy. The ideal to aspire to is complete wholeness. Visual squash and reframing are the more common of several techniques for integrating conflicting parts of the unconscious mind. In principle, the visual squash process involves identifying the parts involved in a conflict and discovering their common intention before having the parts integrate. There are NLP exercises which enable you to do just that, and it's best if you work with a qualified NLP practitioner or with a partner. The meaning of an interaction is dependent on the context in which it takes place, so by changing the context of or reframing an experience, you can change its meaning. The as-if frame is excellent for resolving conflict because it allows you to pretend and therefore explore possibilities you would otherwise not have thought of. When you are in conflict, either with yourself or another party, use one or more of these as-if frames to help you resolve the problem. A time switch. Step 6 months or a year into the future. Look back to now and ask yourself what you did to overcome the problem. A person switch. Pretend you're someone you respect, and ask yourself what you would do if you could swap bodies with the other person for a day. An information switch. Suppose you had all the information you needed to get a solution. What would that knowledge be, and how would the circumstances change? A function switch. Ask your fairy godmother to wave her magic wand and change one component in the system you're experiencing a restriction in. For example, you're not progressing at work, or your marriage is a little bumpy. What would change, and how would this affect the outcome? Now, this exercise is based on the NLP process for integrating conflicting parts. Imagine you're in the role of negotiator, charged with resolving a conflict between different parties. Ask each party, what is your positive intention? Keep asking both sides until you uncover some core needs that each party can agree they both have. Ask each party to acknowledge the common ground they share. Perhaps using the as-if frame, explore alternative solutions to the problem. Decide on the resources each party can bring to the table to help resolve the conflict. Always keep the common aim in mind and aim for a win-win outcome. To paraphrase Einstein, it's more important to have imagination than knowledge, because knowledge boxes you into the realm of the known, whereas imagination allows you to discover and create new solutions. So, use your imagination for lateral thinking to come up with novel solutions.